TGIM. Thank God it is Monday, today the 8th of July 2024. We thank God that we are into this new financial year, already 1 week. So really, even the people you are telling, no, I didn't mean calendar year, I meant financial year. You can no longer use that excuse. And thank God it's Monday, we've decided to just do a review of stop, take stock, and see what is the year telling us, and what do we need to do to be able to effectively deal with this year. Let us pray as we begin. Dear God, we thank you for this Monday. We thank you that you love us. We thank you that you have given us the opportunity to be productive as we engage, as we discuss in furtherance of your work. We ask that you'll speak to us and that you'll give us good success. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And amen. Thank you once again for joining in. Those that may join in for the very first time, TGIM is an informal conversation surrounding a celebration of work. In a special way today, my daughter Esther, glad to see you. We definitely come a long way with Esther. Thank you for joining in this afternoon. And each and every one of you, I definitely appreciate you. Andrew, thank you, Joe, for joining in all the way from the city that flows with milk and honey. Today, we are going to speak about leadership styles that really we ought to adopt in this financial year. You will agree with me that the times are not normal. We are at an interesting time where almost every institution is being challenged. Almost every institution is being hit by scandals, by allegations, by troubles. And the young people these days have a saying, someone posted on a WhatsApp group I'm part of and asked, do we have an immigration lawyer here so that I can change citizenship to Kenya? That was there. So probably to them, the solution was maybe rioting. But definitely we know that everything rises and falls with leadership. And so today we have a special guest to share with us, and I will not spend much time. Mr. David Kaviswa is very many things. But I think in all the things that he is the thread, to me, the thread that sticks out is leadership and leadership development. David, you are welcome to share with us your perspectives this afternoon. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Ernest, for this opportunity. I'm so used to sharing screens. I hope, yes, you've given me the right side. Thank you very much. I've called it Leadership 101. I've liked the introduction that you've given it because sometimes you know best the sorts of people that come on this forum, but you've also said something about the context. And then the first time when you shared with me a message, there was something also about heroic. So I was trying to look at all those sorts of things and see what can I present, and then we discuss and debate. And looking at the size of the group, sometimes the smaller the better, because you can get to discussing widely. There are some statements here. I've called it a think point. The first statement says the purpose of leadership is to unlock or to release potential. That's the purpose of leadership. another thing, to identify and communicate potential to subordinates so clearly that they can believe it and see it in themselves. Okay, these are some thoughts. And as we keep going, these are thoughts that I'm going to trigger you with, and we see what does that mean. All right. There's some statements here, true or false. All leadership is intensely spiritual. I don't know if I can find my chat here. Just put TOF. And, what do you think? All right. All leadership is intensely spiritual. Okay. Can you just put some things in the chat there? All right. What am I seeing in the chat here? True. All right. That's interesting. Okay. And yeah, I notice. So maybe you probably know the difference between spiritual and religious, isn't it? All right. It is intensely spiritual. It touches the spirit. A comment from a leader can push you up or push you down. We did not employ you to think, but to do. A leader tells a young person who has come with some ideas of how to improve the work. They get that statement. That person, even 40 years from now, from the date that statement may have been said, will probably still remember it. Another statement, all leadership is relentlessly developmental. All leadership, it's a nice one. All leadership is intensely developmental. What are your thoughts on this one? Okay. All leadership, true. Andrew says it's true. Okay, somebody says false, somebody says true. All right, another says true. Okay. False. Okay. This one is a tricky one and a very interesting one because it is basically a worldview thing. And as we progress in this discussion, we shall see all leadership is relentlessly developmental. It depends on which school of thought you come from. But what they're saying is that any leader of anybody should be seeking to develop that person because the leader probably knows that they will not be there all the time. So they need to think about the next generation. What we see in Kenya, for example, all right, looking at some of the statements of the senators, they have said they have seen a lot of corruption coming up. They have seen people be getting so rich, and they've even been asking themselves, how did we get to this point? How did you get to this point? One of them was talking about an MP as a helicopter, but the place where he is, Nakuru, Kakamega, somewhere, the hospital is in debt. Relentlessly developmental. Let's see. Well, and it will be good for us to get an opportunity to discuss that. There's an image here that I was hoping I can share with maybe Dr. Ernest, and then he can share this PowerPoint with some of you. But this is just something to say that leadership is about influence. And there are 5 levels of influence. Some people, all their leadership influence is just about the title that they have. If they did not have that title, nobody would even follow them. And those are the sorts of people that can crack the whip just to remind you, I am so and so, in case you didn't know. The second level of influence is you're a leader and people are following you because of how you treat them. People give you permission because of your treatment of them. Remember that. All right? There are some who can follow you just because they fear that the appraisal system is going to come, that the time is going to come and you're going to judge them harshly. Others follow you because they love you. The third level is about results. There are leaders who we follow because of results. Murwana had results. Everywhere he went, and they told me that on the boards on which he sat, most boards are just 1 hour. So people feel that if a board meeting cannot be cracked in 1 hour, do the people know why they call the board meeting? Right? Results. Right? I suppose business might be different from academia. It may be different from government business, but maybe we could learn a few things there. People follow you because of results. If you're here on this call, like I heard them say, some of you are regulars here, and Dr. Ernest is glad that you've come. I think he did mention Brenda. These are questions that we would ask ourselves then. Are you a person of results? Are people following you because of results? All right. The fourth level, this is really briefly put, the kind of leader who develops people or who puts in place systems that develop people. Okay? That kind of leader does a lot of people development. I think Dr. Ernest, you help me mute people. Some people accidentally unmuted. Yeah, thank you. Okay. And then the fifth level, people create systems and systems and systems that develop people. Just take that image. If you're on a phone, just take a screenshot and just ask yourself where you are at. We'll talk about heroic leaders. We'll talk about situation. What is the kind of leader that we need today? A few definitions for us here. I want to take one from Dr. Miles Monroe, something that I've liked very much. He says, leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration. All right? Not the things that are in red. There's emphasis there. Leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration. That inspiration is generated by passion. The passion is motivated by a vision, which is birthed from a conviction, and conviction is produced by a purpose. It's a little bit lengthy, according to his own words, but he says it touches certain core things there. If you start from the end, it starts with purpose. You're a leader. Do you have purpose? All right. I heard Ernest say something there about what do the young people say? About there's a coin. He coined a certain phrase there, which is basically showing that maybe some people are hanging where to go, who to follow, what next, what's the future of this nation, what's the future of employment with all these older people not retiring. There are those sorts of questions. But when people get a purpose and are convinced, when people get a strong purpose in their lives, they develop a conviction about it. All right. Jennifer Musisi was convinced about the city must be clean. All right. She's an individual who liked a lot of cleanliness. And so that conviction, led to how she communicated, the priorities of what she put where, cleanliness in accounts, cleanliness in the physical structures of, and then people started getting it. So people who were working with her were motivated by that vision. She wanted a certain Kampala. And people that got close to her would always hear her painting the kind of city that she wanted. Now, you are motivated by that vision, and then it generates a passion. When you're a leader and have a passion about something, people notice. And it's that passion that inspires people. Now, I want you to know that even some of the styles we're going to talk about, sometimes passion is communicated in even how you speak, how you carry yourself, and people underestimate some of these things in terms of also how you communicate. And sometimes people think that because of the position that I hold, people are bound to listen. Yes, they might. But if you did not have a title and you looked over your shoulder, would those people be following you or not? This one's here. I like Steve Covey. I like him a lot. This is what he says. Leadership is communicating a person's worth and potential so clearly that they come to see it in themselves. Take a screenshot. Maxwell just says leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is influence. And preferably influence that people you have over people. If you just borrowed from Miles Monroe, your capacity to influence because of your attributes, okay, because of how you're doing business. Why do we need some of these things here? These two images are to show that the leader who's going to be successful, the leader who is going to become heroic, and actually, many of the leaders that we call heroic, we tell them, we call them that after time has passed. Sometimes we might, we might not necessarily see it as well. But somehow they help move things from that green triangle. I hope it's green your end to the yellow triangle. All right? Green to red. Now, in the green thing, you see all these sorts of arrows moving all kinds of direction. In fact, one person said that the purpose of a leader is to give direction. All right? So anybody who's heroic means that they move people and their organization and their situation from the green triangle to the yellow one. People have been willing, they've been motivated to get that structured and that organized, and they have moved forward. Many organizations are struggling to get people to have direction. There's a certain study from a book of Steve Covey, and this is what it says. Okay. Once they did a study of people's engagements, only 37% said that they clearly understood what the organization is trying to achieve and why. Only 1 in 5 was enthusiastic about their teams and organization's goals. Can you imagine? You're in an office and only 1 in 5. If there are 5 people there, only one is enthusiastic about the team and organization's goals. Again, only 1 in the 5 workers had a clear line of sight between their tasks and how they're contributing to the organization. Only half were satisfied with the work that they accomplished by the end of the week. Only 15% felt that the organization fully enables them to execute goals. Only 15% that they worked in a high trust environment. You know, I can trust the people that I'm with. The ethics of the people in this place are for the benefit of the nation. You know, I'm a member of parliament. I'm convinced that as members of parliament, we're here to, you know, to take the country forward, not predominantly to strike deals and get money. It's those sorts of thoughts, okay? And they said this, if that was a soccer team, I'll even highlight that on that. They say it would mean that only 4 of the players out of 11 would know which goal was theirs. Can you imagine that? Only 2 of the 11 players would care. Only 2 of the 11 would know what position they play in and know what exactly they're supposed to do. So basically, this kind of scenario is showing that true leaders come out in situations which are very complicated. Biblically speaking, if I might follow that phrase, they say anybody can take people to the promised land. It takes Moses to take them to the wilderness. Anybody can lead when things are okay. We go. When things are difficult, that's where people are tested, and that's where also heroes are born. Some styles, and I'm going to give a couple of styles because when you read up some of these things, magazines, articles, and whatever else you might read, different people call these things differently. So my assumption is that the people who come on this TGIM are the sorts of people who can hold more than one model in their minds and not get confused. All right, so I'll give you a couple of models, and those models are to help you out. There's a traditional model there, okay? And that traditional model just basically says 2 things. At the bottom end, there are people who are task-oriented. Task-oriented, they are high on task. Autocratic, for example, is high on task. Democratic, high on task. All right? But then there are those who are people-oriented, who have a people emphasis in their leadership. Okay? There's category 4 there, which is called laissez-faire, and there's category 3, which is called transformational. All right? Now, that's okay. I'll give you these models. Don't let them confuse you. People use the words differently. We will get there. All right? Now, for autocratic, which is number 1, it's low on people focus. And sometimes we have managers, they don't want to know. You know, they don't want to know what's happening in your family. They don't want to know what's happening at home. They come here, you are employed to work. You know, you didn't put in the report in time, punish. Okay, carrot and stick is not uncommon there. Transformational in this particular regard is saying people that are very high on people, how are you feeling, how is what, okay? They help change people because they're good with people, but please note that number 3 is also low on task, meaning that they might lean very much on the people elements. Now, these are the 4 generic types. And in many of the books, that's what you see. People are kind of moving away from that as well. They have moved, they are moving more. But when we have, now this one here is about situational leadership, or let me first skip it, I'll get back to it. Okay. Now, from the other 4, some people come up with these 6. Coercive. Now, how I'm doing it, the top line, the number, is the style. The phrases just under it tell us exactly what it is. It's a summary of what it is involved. And then the things in brackets are saying when you can use that style, okay? Coercive, those are people that demand immediate compliance. It's a coercive style, all right? Another one can be an authoritative style. Please, not authoritarian, it is saying authoritative style. Mobilizing people toward a vision, all right? There's a pace-setting style where we are expecting excellence and self-direction in people. Okay. We go. Your pace setting. You want excellence. You set the pace. Medical facilities, or like also maybe cafe javas. Some of those sorts of things could apply there. That they're always pace setting. Take care of this. Take care of this. How long do you take before a customer comes in, and how well are you doing? Okay. Then there's number 4. It's a style, affiliate style, centers around building emotional ties. Yes, it can create a positive environment, but it's people. It's almost a little bit like the other in the previous model has called transformational. 5 is democratic, a style which creates consensus. When do you use it a lot? They say when you're unsure of the best course. Consult, talk, involve people. Okay. Now, please remember, different styles might be used at different opportunities. If you're a democratic person and there's a crisis, box number 1, please don't sit there and start discussing what should we do about taking this patient to hospital. What's the best mean? A border, a tuk-tuk. What about who has a car here? Where's the other guy? You're going to be inefficient as a manager. All right. So as a leader, part of the things that we're also talking about is being able to read the situation. You read the situation, take the appropriate action. And I'll let you know, in here, we haven't even talked about the personality of that person. All right. Because while we're talking about style, please also note that our personality is coming. Are you a driven person, choleric, for example, as they say? Are you a laissez-faire kind of person, a phlegmatic? All these sorts of things are speaking to situation. But what these styles are saying, please note that whatever context you're faced with demands that you respond. You need to bear that in mind. If I just went back a little bit to the one that I'd skipped, this one here also gives you, it's called situational leadership. For example, when a person is new to a job, you need to tell them what to do. Then they tell you, then you support. What do you have to do? Don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. If you do it that way, A, B, C, D can happen. Coaching. What about when it comes to supporting and delegating? When the capacity of the person that you're dealing with is high, all right? Please don't overdirect. There you're going to kill people. If they've got good capacity, just keep supporting them, hearing them out. Yeah, just say pressing them on, all right? And if their capacity even goes a notch higher, let me say if we give them levels 1 to 4, if they're 4 out of 4, please delegate to them. Delegate to them, right? Now, those are some of the things that we, styles that we can use and the principles that we can also apply. I didn't do spell check here. Know thyself, control thyself, not they self. All right. What is it also saying? That we've got to be, all our leadership is contextually based as well. Please understand your context. If you're in the military, some things may be a little bit different. If you're in the academia, if you're in but a good leader needs to read that, know their situation, and also know how to apply. We need wisdom to understand our natural tendencies as well, and also our potential blind spots. Now, in the second paragraph, I put in something that sometimes you don't like to talk about, but the older I'm getting, the bolder I'm getting. We lead badly. Let me first put it that way, to shock you all. We lead badly because we're a people who are very top down. I have a 4x4 car, therefore I will put on the lights and get out of the way. I must go. That's bad. But that's the culture. I am the boss of this organization, so when I come in, you all keep quiet. Or when I talk, you don't talk. Now, those sorts of things have been studied. And I want to give you a graph. I could have done many, but I want to just share with you one graph and introduce you to certain 6 variables. They say in leadership, there are those 6 variables there. I want to focus really on the first one, power distance. That's the one which says it allows hierarchies and basically inequalities are expected. You're a boss, you have an idea, the boss steals your idea and presents it as his, and you're supposed to keep quiet because your turn is coming. Now, this tool there compares, I've put there certain countries, Ethiopia, Ireland, Nigeria, and Switzerland, just to let you know. On the first variable, power distance, where, the big man syndrome, the big man mentality, that's how I look at it. Look at Africa, orange and green. Ethiopia, 70%. This Nigeria scored 80%. Big is big. I didn't put Uganda because it is not them, that's two. Okay, look at the comparisons, Ireland and Switzerland. There, they basically feel we are all equal. Even if I'm a leader, I am just a leader of peers. What that thing first means at the distance, that some people say, I am the leader because I'm the best. I am a leader because, all right? Fast forward, Kenya. Not fast forward, just review. Some of the challenges that they're having there is because MPs don't listen. Okay, we're seeing it there. What about here? The other day I was looking at the newspapers and I was seeing Nandala Mafabi in a consultative meeting. Consultative. Hear that word. It was a football pitch. There are probably around 10,000 people. That's how our MPs do consultation. How do you do consultation? All right. I'm giving these examples because they're outside of us and we can look at them and maybe compare and and basically critique. Okay. Look at the next variable. It's about individualism. The degree to which people prefer to work alone or have a group, a mentality. You can see that our European counterparts, if you can help mute, Anis, help me out. Bagala is sorry. If you look at some of our counterparts abroad, all right, they are more individualistic. All right. Sandra, could you please mute? Could you please mute? Honest, help me with Sandra. Sandra, please mute. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. You look at the individualism. Look at us down there. Ethiopia, 7%, Nigeria, 0%. In short, we fear putting ourselves forward. We fear the individual perspective. We fear we are more of a group person. So how is that going to affect your leadership? How is that also going to affect how people perceive you in an institution? Should you even want to share something which is an individual perspective? They might shut you down and think, watch out, you might lose your job, okay? But let's go to number 3 is motivation towards achievement. We're comparable. We're not doing badly. Everybody has some kind of motivation. What about the degree to which we avoid uncertainty? All right, we're all in the 50s. Not too, with the countries I chose, not too different, but people avoid uncertainty. All right, Switzerland, you can see it's quite high up in terms of avoiding uncertainty. They must have control. They must have control. I'm bringing these variables to let us know when we talk, many times when we talk about leadership, somewhere I read and this is what it said. Leadership is the most studied and talked about subject, but the results in many of the leaders generically on the globe are not commensurate to the amount of money that has been put into leadership. Okay. Look at the Middle East. What's happening in the Middle East? Look at what's happening in the US about the Middle East. Look at what's happening. It's all leadership. All right. It's all leadership. So that one there, I'll not go through all of it, but it is just something that I've left there for you to have a look at. And know that when you're doing your leadership, please know you're having a whirlwind. There are very many things that you'll be contending against, and please don't be naive. The third and final section that I want to just share with you here. All right. The third and final thing, it's winning series. All right. Dr. Ernest wants people to talk about this thing, to win in their spheres. And I'll just talk a little bit about how do you do that. with some local examples. Many of you have eaten SUMZ, S-U-M-Z, but many of you probably don't know the story. All right? This guy, the owner, all right, his name has just gotten out of my mind, Ngabirano, okay? School teacher, on his honeymoon, he goes to Kenya, eats certain crisps and something like that, and he eats some, some chips they had made, bad quality, and he got an idea and said, but can't we make better things? He was a teacher. But then he came back from honeymoon, the idea started. What kind of leadership did he have? Those that tell you about some of the visionaries, they will drive you, and they will drive you. And even when you go and interact, yeah, he's driven. All right. Now, recently, they just even expanded their factory. He's driven. We must be the best. They've won awards, but you see, the thing of getting awards is driving them forward and faster. All right. What kind of leadership do you need to do that? What kind of leadership? We talk a lot about URA in the past. We talked about Kajina. What leadership was that? All right. And now URA is back in the news that they have started stealing money. And so now the president is getting concerned about what to put. So leadership, context. Can you stand still and sail through a corrupt environment and maintain your leadership character? Okay, those are questions. And as I said, people, it's easier for us to always point them out when we look at other people. Okay? I'll put in another thing here about a pastor that have come to meet, Pastor Peter Kasirivu, and the Africa Renewal Ministry. And, I want to propose that his kind of leadership is visionary. All right? He started off with something they call BCV, Bethany Christian Village. And then after that, he went into something that they call Maranatha High School, schools, so that his church would have impact and influence. And it's kept growing. They have something that they call a medical center there called WENS. Then they've got something that they call Africa Renewal Ministry. It kept expanding. And then after some time, when they saw that there are many problems with orphans, they did something they called Loving Hearts. What kind of leadership does it take to do all that? And I'm putting these there because sometimes the leaders that we have in our situation that we're not very familiar with. And some of you actually are leaders in that category that, are people to be followed. Now, the circles on the outer end are things that have also continued to grow. Transformational Christian leaders, something that is going there. Every year they get young people that they work with to help them become mad. They're not about the villages that they're working. They're trying to create something that they call Renew Healthcare Network. Visionary leadership leads to one idea, growing to the next. I'll just skip, just go through these ones quickly. Elon Musk, some of you guys know him. He's documented as a strategic leader. I had 3, but I'll just talk about 2. They say people management skills. He leads by example. He's confident. He's skilled at problem solving. He leads with a purpose. He's collaborative, comfortable with change, operating with integrity, continuous learner, optimistic. All right? Those are attributes. So if we're going to talk about leadership and stuff like that, I want us to know that once we know the attributes, we can work at them. But I don't want to propose. We get a transformation which is inside out. Why? There are some people who can look at all these sorts of things and know how to act it out. Okay? They can be active. They can act, being collaborative, when at the core they are not. Okay? And principle-centered leadership demands we change from the core. Steve Jobs, his need and drive to achieve, his vision for emerging technologies, creative all the time, collaborative, appetite. Oh, this guy was bad on that one. Appetite for excellence, innovative, and the list goes on. Dr. Ernest said that we've come here to review. We're into a new financial year. A week has gone, all right? It was interesting hearing him say that because some of us operate in calendar years, but in governments, people are more familiar with they're conscious of both, right? So for me, what I'm thinking and proposing to you as we shortly open it up for discussion, a few slides, is that transformational leadership is what I propose to anybody that wants to be effective. But in that as well, I propose strategic leadership, all right, and situational leadership. So you've got to balance these things. It's like these people have many balls in their hands that they can juggle. So juggle all those sorts of things. But then at the bottom there, I've said transformational leadership with theology. Why am I saying that? Because a lot of the transformational leadership we think about is just transforming this, transform that. It is very narrow in view, and I'll share two definitions of those last two things there. Then we discuss. Last year, my key highlight of last year was coming across this definition. I didn't know about it before, but I'd heard this word used a lot in churches and other places, but I learned that servant leadership is servant first. The individual is servant first. It begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. Please do not use that term servant leadership just because you go to church and have got religious beliefs. Please don't. It's very clear that the person wants to serve first. They're driven by the motivation to serve others. All right? And because you want to do that, then you aspire for leadership, because leadership gives a bigger platform. So once you get a bigger platform, then you can help more people. It's the first definition I came across, which are the test, and what's the test? Here is the test. The best test and difficult to administer is, and it's these things in blue. Do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? He's asking us. Murwana, I was told that you're such a pragmatic man that if a place needed to be swept and the person was not there to sweep it, you'd get a broom and sweep the thing. Murwana. James Murwana was that practical. This guy, Cafe Javas, the same kind of leadership thing. Okay, he'll come to Cafe Javas, move around, interact with people. He's the boss, mind you. You know, sometimes go and help serve and help clean things, you know, and interacts with the people. That's the kind of leadership that he does. Small wonder, little wonder, when he goes for the marathon, how many of his staff also want to participate in the marathon? And they do. And they go in the marathon, okay? Servant kind of leadership. Do those that you serve, you on the call here, yes, sometimes we think leadership is being higher up the top there. No. Whatever level God has given you to lead people, however small it is your influence on those people making them become better people, making them to desire to be like you? Are you replicating yourself? And finally, in terms of transformational leadership, which has a theological component, this is what I would say. And probably if we took a theological description of transformational leadership, maybe we'd have better society and better leaders. Food for thought. Transformational leadership serves to change the status quo by articulating to followers the problems in the current system and providing a compelling vision of what a new organization could be. From to. But it goes on to also say that transformational leadership is being empowered and then empowering others in turn. All right? And places the right side of purpose for sustainable human flourishing. Sustainable human flourishing in the office, sustainable human flourishing in the home, sustainable human flourishing in the country, in the community, in the nation. The ones that we call our heroes, are people that have balanced a lot of those variables. New financial year, week 1, if you're working a place that, you know, July to June, you know, you're at the threshold, you're at the beginning, or you're on the starting line. May we wish that the leadership decisions you're going to take during this period are going to stretch you, make you uncomfortable. Please do not lead people where you've not gone. We come from a culture, and that thing I call power distance, we are used to talking and relying on the strength of our office. And some of us bully without knowing. I want to leave it there, open it up to debates and discussion. Thank you very much. Back to Ernest.
Thank you very, very much for that deep presentation. Definitely, I believe that we have been challenged, we have been motivated, our thirst has been activated. Thank you very much, David.
Welcome, sir.
Members, I welcome comments, questions, suggestions, etc. Anyone wants to comment or ask?
I'm thinking of the graphs that David showed about the different perspectives in different countries. And I'm wondering, is it about culture? Is culture something that also has an impact, or is it purely leadership?
Okay. All right. My take, Ernest, how do you have to do it? Many questions and then we do, or just do it like a discussion. Actually, okay. She's why don't I first get some views? This is the graph she's talking about. So is it culture or is it just leadership?
Because I see your title is about context and culture. I'm wondering, doesn't leadership also weigh in, or it's pulled mainly by culture?
Okay. Anybody wants to have a go? Then I come in. I mean, I'm sure Ernest would want it to be a discussion. What do people think?
Right. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can.
Thank you very much, Dr. David, for this presentation. I think to answer Dr. Pofia's question, culture has something to do with it. But for me, even before we go there, it would be interesting, maybe not now, but later on for Uncle D, for you to dig out for us who carried out this research and the variables that they were dealing with, you know, it would probably give us some insight.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I still think culture has a huge role. If you see Ethiopia and Nigeria, I'm not going to talk about Ireland and Switzerland that I'm not familiar with, but the cultures in Nigeria and Ethiopia are very different. And I would like to believe that as they were tabulating and picking up this evidence, you begin to see that problem coming out. The problem of culture. Look at power distance. If I understand power distance properly, you can see the culture of Nigeria that glorifies chiefdom, Igwe, you know, titles and so on. Oga come out so strongly in the two, actually, you can see in the two African countries, that culture, it seems to be coming out very highly because of how their societies are run, vis-a-vis Ireland and Switzerland, which may not necessarily have that there, you know? And then when you see Ethiopia and Nigeria again are doing very badly when it comes to individualism, because they seem to promote the group the group leadership space, the group think over the individual. You know, so you find Nigeria is at 0, Ethiopia is at 7. So those two for me give me an indication that maybe culture, like Uncle Diaz put in the title, has an important impact on the way the tables finally come through. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know earlier you mentioned, who did you mention? You mentioned somebody keeps coming here. What's her name again? I don't know if I can find her here. What does she think? Some of the people that have been regular, you know, what do you think about culture in our leadership styles and approaches in terms of how we do culture? I mean, how we do business. Is it leadership? Does you know, culture have a thing to do with it? Does context have a thing to do with it? I think it was Esther that they said glad to see you. So Esther, because Dr. Ernest mentioned you, can I take the privilege of giving you a spotlight as well? What are your thoughts?
I've been trying to reflect on the question of, you know, the role of culture and context. But I think comparing broadly the countries, Ethiopia, Ireland, Nigeria, and Switzerland, and I think you really gave us quite a good selection for the countries, because Nigeria, for me, brings a country that we can relate with as Africans at the continent level, but also Ethiopia. So those are two different ones, all in one continent, and then Ireland and Switzerland. I think that while we look at culture, has a very strong impact on how one leads, because if we have lived in different contexts, we will see that respect and expression come out differently in the different settings because of culture, because of the culture and the context. So the two then influence leadership, because I have seen, I come from the context of academia, and I have seen when we travel with our professors, for example, here he's a professor by rank, and while you're greeting him and all your expressions, you have to continually, we are very sensitive to the ranks. When we travel for conferences to another setting, maybe Europe or something, and now here the students and everyone else is saying, is calling their professors by name and saying, yes, Esther, yes, David, for example. In that setting, we then see our professors toned down, I promise. And then now when you call them professor, they give you that look of, no, not in this set. Here, everyone is, you know. So that's why I think that, yes, so they even seem to tell you, tone it down, you know, tone it down. We have flown miles away. We are in Sweden or we are in the US, because now suddenly here, it's not about the title, it is, and yet still you're respecting one another. So for me, I think there's a whole role of context, and everyone in their subconscious knows when they keep moving from one context to the other, and they are trying to kind of adjust to the
balance
context.
the boats.
Yes, to balance it, and then also the role of the culture that is seated around. So that leadership, even when you come in with your leadership style, having been exposed with different settings, the people you lead, depending on their level of exposure, will struggle to come to where you're taking them unless they have been where you have been. So you have to recognize that while you're trying to ask them their views or something, the context and culture where they come from, they're probably not used to what you're telling them as a leader. And because of that, you have to be patient with where with what you want them to do. If you want them to express their voice, you really have to, I think, be patient with them if they haven't been in those settings, because it can be alarming for your leader to truly say, what do you really think? And that has no repercussions, like you just want to know what I think. And for me, then there's something you hinted on our personalities and then how they link with our leadership styles. So I would have wanted you to, when you give examples of the Mulwanas and the what, we don't know what their predominant character traits were, but I think then after the culture, it then gets to the individual and their personality. But thank you, and over to you. I'm still reflecting.
All right. I think those are very good thoughts of reflection, and I'm hoping that others, even if they have not called you out, that you're also reflecting. But in this discussion, we've actually seen the many things the many balls that we have in the air that we need to balance. I'll start off with a comment that Dr. Daniel had kind of raised. This man and the study did. You know what? When I saw this graph, I have this tendency sometimes when I read some things from some people, I want to go back and find out, but who are you? All right. Now, what I found out, this person had actually written about a lot of this power distance, and he had gone and carried out researches even in schools. I saw him describing how our school teachers are respected, how even in the class, you should not ask a question that embarrasses a teacher, and how whatever. When I read some of those sorts of things, I said, oh my gosh, this power distance thing comes from very far. But it's you know, it's in us. The Nigerians are Oga, that I was not pleased about. They didn't rank Uganda. They didn't rank Uganda, right? But there's a country I didn't put here intentionally. It would confuse us. France. High power distance. I found that very surprising amongst the European things. But sometimes when you see how the French, deal with people, don't speak our language if you're going to make mistakes, they've got that kind of thing, order and stuff. I think, yes, culture plays a part. Even when you look at our own individual cultures here, there are some tribal groups that are gentler in terms of how they approach. They're more reconciliatory, they are more democratic, they are more soft-spoken than others, and those sorts of things can also affect. Now, going back to also what I'm taking from Dr. Porfia and her question, is it culture, is it context, is it leadership? It is all of them. It is all of them. In the slide that followed, I started off by saying, know thyself, control thyself. If you come from a culture that is perceived to be very soft-spoken, okay, let me put it this way. They say 90% of Americans are extroverts. Then they add by choice. What that basically means that in terms of the psychometric distribution, the majority are not extroverts. But their context demands that you must speak up, be clear in class, make a contribution, and if you don't, they actually mark you down. And when you read certain materials, Asians in America would struggle like that because they're not forthcoming. They listen first and then they take in, but then they're judged harshly. So there's that as well, that there's that cultural element that comes in. Then there's the context. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine that also Dr. Reza knows, was in the US and he's speaking his Ugandan thing. And then they just told him, in the US, you speak up, you speak up. They don't have those gentle things. And for us, sometimes we think that you're shouting. So there's that thing of context where you've got to read the situation in which you are and know what kind of leadership it is determining. The good thing I liked about the styles, it is showing it's not fixed. All right. Once they got a style, it is giving the freedom to know what is appropriate in this particular situation. I do teach occasionally public speaking, and I tell people, do not go in a situation that requires level 5 volume and start on level 2. You're not getting any marks. And it probably, when they shout back at you and say Sauti, you have created an environment which is going to make you uncomfortable, because that's negative feedback and it may throw you off a bit. So I think leadership does play a role. And in leadership, I'm taking it the fact that you are so in tune with yourself, who you are, strengths and weaknesses, and then how you apply it in the particular context. I didn't talk about gender, but sometimes they also do say that when you're going to be an excellent leader, gender comes in, you know. How many times is a female leader being shortcut in her leadership by people feeling that she needs help, or, you know, she can't lead me because she's whatever? What kinds of skills do you need? Jennifer fought many battles in the KCCA. She came into a time to hostile environment, appropriate leadership thing, she brought the results that she brought. Kajina, gently, and I'm using these examples because I'm thinking that you're more familiar with them, all right? And as I said now, those were heroes, and that's why, you know, if we talk about heroic leadership and those sorts of things that we need to think about, those are names that we come up with. But I brought in people like Kasirivu, who are also scoring at their level. There is the Cafe Javas, the owner, Mandela, and the results is getting. Then there's there are some of these people that are not always in the spotlight and are getting these results. All right. May we have the wisdom to know that leadership is measured in the challenging moments. All right. Anybody can take people to the promised land, only Moses to the wilderness. As I conclude, for us to be heroic leaders, we don't seek the title, we don't seek to become heroes. We do our thing, character driven, and that's why I gave you that. By the way, I've shared the slide, I've shared the file in the chat. If you can download it, good for you. You know, just try. I put it in the chat. I noticed that it had something where I could share a file, so I put it there for you. If you can have a look at it, interrogate it more and more, and know that thou art inexcusable. To improve ourselves, we are inexcusable. But my final thing would be the transformational leadership that has a theological slant. We are creating situations, we are leading situations to move them from a state of confusion to a better state. Moving people from a state of lostness and stuff like that to better people, more fulfilled and stuff like that. You know, and taking people to where God would want them to be. Thank you very much. I'd want to leave it at that and hand back to Dr. Ernest. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, David, for sharing. I must mention that David is almost completing his doctorate. I noticed that today you focused on calling out people who are on that journey. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining in this conversation. I hope you've been blessed. I hope you've been challenged. Transformational leadership with a servant heart and a theological slant. Interesting. Really, my take home is creating that balance between being transformational, but looking out for the people, but not just looking out for the people, but where you are taking them. My pastor usually says that if people don't see where you're taking them, they will not follow you. So that is very, very important as well. Thank you once again, David, for sharing with us your experiences. Thank you to each and every one of you as well. I hope that you have been blessed. Till next Monday, we shall use the same link. And we hope that this conversation will be uploaded on YouTube. You can just check out Ernest Tashobia Katwesije and it will be yours. You will have it. And thank you also, David, for being gracious to share with us the file, the presentation in the chat room. I've already downloaded my copies, so you can, I know that it's possible to download it. Till next Monday, once again, thank God it is Monday. Bless you.
Thank you. All right. God bless you. Thank you.